Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudiraye. Hare Kṛṣṇa. I'm very happy to be with you today. I mean it. I'm very grateful to all of you for your services, which you do. Various services in this temple. And sometimes some of you also help me, like Yashwant and some other people. So thank you very much for your hospitality and your, your good attitude. I'm of not much use here, but at least I'll try to say something which may be worthwhile. So Suvarna Gaur Hari asked me to speak on the verse from the 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is entitled Divisions of Faith, and text number 16, which describes the austerities of the mind. Lord Krishna is describing austerities and food and faith in and charity in different modes of material nature. And while coming to austerity, he says that there is a standard division: austerity of the body, austerity of the speech, and austerity of the mind. So the 16th verse describes what does it mean to be austere in the mind. And austerity, of course, in Sanskrit is called tapaḥ, which literally means fire or heat. And the idea is that if you perform austerity, you acquire some energy, Shakti. We all need Shakti to do something in this world. When you're sick or when you're old, you feel completely useless and morose because you cannot do anything. The joy in life of any human being is to do something which is worthwhile, to do something nice. You know, even little child, when little child is running here and there, he just feels energy and he feels happy. Even animals. I live in Govardhan and we have rabbits there, in the place where I live. There's a lot of rabbits, and I once watched, the rabbit was running in the lawn without any reason. He would run at the one end of the lawn to another end of the lawn with full speed, putting all his ears here. And then he would reach the end of the lawn and run back. And then again ran there, and then again ran there. Because the point which I'm trying to make is that we enjoy using the energy. Everyone. We want to acquire energy and then we want to use. That's the enjoyment. When we have energy and we use it somehow or other, it gives you some sort of very pleasurable feeling. So when the Vedas speak, or in Sanskrit, when they speak about austerity as tapaḥ, it basically means that by performing certain activities, you acquire energy. More energy than you already have. And we all actually want to have more energy. We want to acquire more and more energy, accumulate to spend it in a proper way. So tapasya or tapaḥ, austerity, is a very amazing way of acquiring energy. Usually people try to grab energy. They try to encroach, they try to steal energy. By stealing money, by stealing energy, or by different means. I'm living in Govardhan, and in Govardhan people, they just put something on the electric wires and steal the energy from the government. So that's usually people trying to get the energy by some illegal means. But tapasya is the way to get energy by legal means. This is how you acquire energy in a proper way. Everything else is just stealing, and ultimately it will not bring you benefit. So tapasya is the bona fide method of acquiring energy. So let us read how Kṛṣṇa defines the austerity for the mind, or certain qualities or activities which help to make our mind powerful. And we all want, somebody wants to have powerful mind. Those who are working in, computer companies, they need powerful mind. Everyone needs powerful mind. So this is the way how to make your mind powerful. And it's very practical. Although, Kṛṣṇa gives some advice which may be difficult to execute, but nevertheless, it's a very practical advice. Manaḥ-prasādaḥ saumyatvam. Manaḥ-prasādaḥ saumyatvam. Maunam ātma-vinigrahaḥ. Maunam ātma-vinigrahaḥ. bhāva-saṁśuddhir etat. Bhāva-saṁśuddhir etat. Tapo mānasam ucyate. Tapo mānasam ucyate. Manaḥ-prasādaḥ saumyatvam. Maunam ātma-vinigrahaḥ. bhāva-saṁśuddhir etat. Tapo mānasam ucyate. manaḥ-prasādaḥ, satisfaction of the mind. Saumyatvam, being without duplicity towards others. Maunam, gravity. Ātma, of the self. Vinigrahaḥ, control. Bhava, of one's nature. Saṁśuddhir, purification. Iti, thus. Etat, this. Tapaḥ, austerity. Mānasam, of the mind. Ucyate, is said to be. And satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities of the mind. Purport. To make the mind austere is to detach it from the sense gratification. It should be so trained that it can be always thinking of doing good for others. The best training for the mind is gravity in thought. One should not deviate from Krishna consciousness and must always avoid sense gratification. To purify one's nature is to become Krishna conscious. Satisfaction of the mind can be obtained only by taking the mind away from thoughts of sense enjoyment. The more we think of sense enjoyment, the more the mind becomes dissatisfied. In the present age, we unnecessarily engage the mind in so many different ways for sense gratification, and so there is no possibility of the mind becoming satisfied. The best course is to divert the mind to the Vedic literature, which is full of satisfying stories, as in the Purāṇas and the Mahābhārata. One can take advantage of this knowledge and thus become purified. The mind should be devoid of duplicity, and one should think of the welfare of all. Silence means that one is always thinking of self-realization. The person in Krishna consciousness observes perfect silence in this sense. Control of the mind means detaching the mind from sense enjoyment. One should be straightforward in his dealings and thereby purify his existence. All these qualities together constitute austerity in mental activities. Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. manaḥ-prasādaḥ saumyatvam maunam ātma-vinigrahaḥ bhāva-saṁśuddhir etat tapo mānasam ucyate. And satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities of the mind. Antah praveshimam avachimam prasuttam sanjīvayate kila shakti darasvadamna anyamscha hasta charana shravanat vagadim pranannamo bhagavate puruṣāya tubhyam svasyastu vishvasya kalah prasidatam dhyantu buddhani shivam mithodhiya manascha badram vajatata toksujaya vishyatam nomati rapyaya tuki. So here, it's very interesting how Srila Prabhupada wrote this purport to this verse. Several times, at least 3 times, he repeats in different way the same things. He takes the list of the qualities which are described here by the Lord Kṛṣṇa and explains them again and again and again to drive back the point, what does it mean to perform the austerity with the mind. And Kṛṣṇa starts with manaḥ-prasādaḥ. The first thing which distinguishes somebody who is austere in the mind from somebody who is not austere, not so austere, is this feeling of satisfaction. If you always feel dissatisfied, and that's a practice. You know, I know many different people. Some people are very rich, some people are normal, ordinary people, some people are very poor. And the satisfaction of the mind really invertly dependent on the richness of a person. The more one has, the more he needs. It's an amazing quality of the mind. There was one person, I don't exactly remember his name, but believe me, it's a real story. He was the richest man in the world. He was an American multimillionaire in, I believe, in 60s or 50s of the last century. So he was by far the richest man. Can somebody get rid of this echo? If you can take away this echo. So he was the richest man in the world. And he was quite old. And just the day before his death, of course he didn't plan to die, but it so happened that a journalist came to take an interview from him. And the journalist asked this man, can you encapsulate, you're such a great man, you achieved so much in this world, can you encapsulate in a few words what is the essence of your life, for what you live? And the man said, yes, it's very simple, just one word is enough: more. This is what I live for, more. So the point here is that manaḥ-prasādaḥ, the satisfaction of the mind doesn't really depend, or if it depends on what you have, it depends invertly of what you have. It doesn't depend. Sometimes people think, I don't have much, and therefore how you can be satisfied? You have greater chances to be satisfied because you have nothing. The more you have, the more you will want. You will always want, it's an illusion. Sometimes people think, I will achieve this level of richness, I will become, this rich, and then I will be satisfied. Forget it. When you achieve this level, you will have some other goal, and there is no end to it. So the point which Kṛṣṇa makes here, and Srila Prabhupada repeats, as I said several times, is that, if you have this strange idea that you will become satisfied when you have something, you are grossly mistaken. Srila Prabhupada says that the satisfaction of the mind doesn't come from what you have, or doesn't come from sense gratification. The more you gratify your senses, the more dissatisfied you become in the mind. Because this is the nature of the mind. If you start gratifying the senses, then you implant samskaras. And when you have samskaras in your mind, the samskaras will demand from you more and more and more. It's never like this, that you get something, you get some very pleasurable feeling, and this pleasurable feeling will sit there for the rest of your life and say, oh, so nice. You were successful in your life. You had this experience once. No, this pleasurable feeling, experience which you have, it will cry. It will outcry, I need more. Repeat it again. Repeat it again. And then you repeat it again. And when you repeat it, it doesn't bring you the same satisfaction as it brought for the first time. And then you want to repeat it again to see what's wrong with it, because for the first time it was so nice. And next time it was not this nice. And then it goes without end. It's how the mind works. So if you want to be satisfied in the mind, Prabhupada is very scientifically saying there. Please understand that this is not just a sectarian, feeling or sectarian thoughts of an old man. I have a disciple. He is a head of some mobile phone company in some country of the former Soviet Union. I don't know how he gets these things, but, and he likes to give public lectures. He sits and, there are few dozens of people who come, and he explains the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad Bhagavatam. He loves to do it. And he told me once a story that because he has this mobile phone company, he is privy to, he probably can read all these SMS messages or whatever, somehow or other. So he said, he was giving lecture, and he was telling this sort of things. You should be a little austere, you should control your mind, you should not drink wine, you should not do this, you should not that. And he said, one young girl was sitting in the audience. And while she was giving the lecture, the young girl was typing an SMS message to her boyfriend. The boyfriend is asking what's going on, and she's saying, there is one old man. When he was young, he was doing all these things, and now he is old and he's saying not to do these things. Now he's useless, he cannot do it. So now he's teaching that you shouldn't do it. So, what I want to say that the point which Prabhupada make is not because he's old. And now he's teaching everyone not to do this. When he was young, he was doing it, and he became old, and it's the time. No, but he's saying a very profound truth. The very profound truth, which if you don't believe, you can try it, but better if you believe. Then you'll save yourself from a lot of troubles. So if you try to satisfy yourself, satisfy the mind by satisfying senses, you will get exactly the opposite result. Yes, you will get satisfaction of the senses, but senses, they're insatiable. As Kṛṣṇa says in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that, mahāshana mahapapma. That this kama, this desire for sense gratification, it's mahāshana. Mahāshana means it's ferocious eater. You put more into this kama, and kama says, yes, give me more, give me more, give me more. Mahāshana mahapapma. You try to satisfy the desires in your mind. By satisfying your senses, you get the opposite result. You become more and more and more dissatisfied. That's a fact. That's a scientific fact. And on the contrary, Prabhupada says here that if you try to, if you say, I'm happy, I'm satisfied. If you just say this, it will have an effect on your mind. Because the mind, it's a very interesting mechanism. And you can program your mind. And in fact, that's what we always do. We constantly program our mind. Unfortunately, as the programmers, all this, IT engineers, they know how to write programs, how to program computers. In a similar way, we always program the mind. And as much as the IT engineers, they need to know the language, how to program the mind, we also know the language, how to program the mind. We should say something. This is how we program the mind. If we say, I am satisfied, the mind will immediately think, really? Maybe. It's very well maybe. It's not bad. So, and if you repeat it, enough times, the mind will become satisfied. It's a fact, and if you always say, no, I need more, no, I'm not satisfied, no, I need this and that and do this, and you repeat this, then you will not be satisfied. So satisfaction, happiness is achievable right now. You don't have to wait for 50 years when you become a millionaire and you have a villa in Hawaii and you remain unsatisfied. You can become satisfied right now. And for that, there is a certain programming and there is a language for this. We have to say, yes, I'm satisfied. I need what what do we need? Prabhupada said, yes, a rich man, he sleeps in a very luxurious bed in his, air-conditioned bedroom. And, poor man is sleeping in the street on the ground. But when they sleep, the experience is the same. And most probably, the poor man has more sound sleep than the rich man, because the rich man has so much anxiety during the day, and it's all running in his mind while he's trying to sleep, and he's just, he's not really satisfied. But the point is that the experience which we have, we don't need so much. We don't really need much. It's just the imagination of the mind. The mind always imagines something. It's just, kalpana. The mind is always depicting some pictures. This is what I need. This is this. This is that. But this is a misuse of the mind. Mind is a very amazing mechanism. I wanted to tell you a little story in this regard. This is, again, true story from India, from probably the beginning of the last century or the end of the century before, when the kings were still there. So there was one king, and he caught some criminal, some serious criminal, and there was a death penalty for this criminal. And the death penalty for this criminal was supposed to be the snake bite, the cobra bite. This criminal was taken to the execution room, and he knew that what's going to happen, that the snake will be brought, and he would put the blinder over his eyes, and then, the king or whoever, the executor or whatever, came with a little needle and pinched or, prick this man, whatever place there was this little needle. And the man died immediately. Not only he died, his body became black, as if he was bitten by the cobra. The man was he was convinced, this is 100% true story. The man completely believed that the cobra bit him, and he died because of cobra bite, and his mind generated cobra's poison within his body. There was another story, like one engineer, he was somehow rather locked in a big refrigerator. He was working in a company, and there was this railways. There are these trains with big refrigerators, and he was locked there. And next morning he was found dead, and he was frozen. But the point was that the refrigerator didn't work. It was normal temperature. There was no point for him to freeze to death, but he was frozen to death. Why? Because in the mind he thought, I will be frozen to death. As much as this man who was bitten by this cobra, which was just a little needle. He thought that this is the snake bite, and I will die. So this is how the mind is completely controlling the body. Whatever you have in the mind will happen in the body. Therefore, the mind is called desire tree. Whatever you desire, how you program the mind, it will happen to you. If you always say, if you are afraid, I will get cancer, for sure you will get cancer. No problem. Because you always think about it. You meditate on this. So you will get it. Because this is how the mind works. And if you say to the mind, I'm happy, then, the mind has no chance to think otherwise. Because you programmed him in a special way. So when Kṛṣṇa says, manaḥ-prasādaḥ, first thing when he says that the austerity of the mind is that whatever you get, whatever you have, you should say, that's good, that's enough, I don't need more. And if you get more, you say, yeah, it's also good. And if something bad happens to you, you also say, that's okay, I'm getting it. Everyone gets something good and something bad. And in the Shastras, in the Vedas, it is said, today I read it, that, if you have something bad now, something good is coming. And if you have something good now, what happened next? Something bad will come. So in all these situations, it always repeats. There is no, everyone has this experience. You just say, it's okay, it's fine. Tatenu comes samikṣamana. Bunjane ātma-kritam vipakam. Whatever is coming to me is the result of my past deeds, and be satisfied. And that, again, coming back to my initial point, is that will bring you a lot of positive energy within your mind. That will make your mind strong. Whereas if you always, dissatisfied, you dissipate your energy. Whatever energy you have, it will be wasted in a very, useless way through this dissatisfaction. Because what this dissatisfaction means? Dissatisfaction means you always try to fight with the environment you're in. This is not wrong, this is not good, this is wrong, this is how it can be, it should be different. And you're wasting your energy every second of your life. Whereas if you say, I'm happy, all your energy is there, and you can concentrate your mind on Kṛṣṇa. And if you are dissatisfied, your energy is dissipated, uselessly dissipated. Like recently, I got a letter from one lady, and she said, I cannot, Guru Maharaj, please don't ask me to chant. I cannot do this. And then she writes, I just cannot. I cannot put my mind into there. It's just the more I chant, I have such an unpleasant experience. I love ISKCON, I love devotees, I love everything, but I cannot chant. Don't ask me to chant. So, and then she writes, this is bad, and this is bad in my life, and this is bad. And what is the disease in this case? She cannot put her mind and get satisfaction by chanting the holy name because she doesn't have energy for this. Her whole energy is dissipated, wasted, because she is dissatisfied. She just programmed herself. I don't mean to say that she completely whimsically programmed. There are some serious problems in her life. But nevertheless, it's a program. And if you're intelligent enough, you have to know how to program yourself properly so that it's productive. Don't put virus programs in your mind. There are so many people who are planting viruses in your mind anyway. All these people in the internet, they're planting viruses in your mind. You need this and you need that. All these people who do advertisement, what is it? It's just viruses. You need some special program to purify your mind from all these unlimited viruses which are there. Because when virus is there, what virus does, when the virus is there on the hard disk, it destroys the hard disk. So when the strong desire, which is planted into your mind by some, crooked people, by some clever people, it basically destroys your mind. Therefore, Kṛṣṇa says the first point is manaḥ-prasādaḥ. And then the next point is also very interesting. Saumyatvam. Saumyatvam, it's from Soma. Soma means moon. And moon is very pleasing, moon is very generous. Saumyatvam means this attitude towards others. I want to do good to other people. This is what saumyatvam is. Saumyatvam is this sort of feeling that I'm not competing with others. There's no point of me competing with others. I just want to do something good for others. And then again, if you do something good to others, you become satisfied immediately. Isn't it? Do you have this experience? You did something good, you get satisfaction yourself. So this, again, saumyatvam makes your mind peaceful. Whereas if you scheming, or if you're trying to inflict some pain, and if you're evil in mind, you will not have peace in mind. You will always be agitated in the mind. Like Duryodhana. Duryodhana was always agitated in the mind. He was constantly. Why? Because this, why people want to inflict pain to other people? Because of matsarya. And what is matsarya? What is the meaning of matsarya? Matsarya means this competitive spirit. We usually translate it as envy or whatever, jealousy sometimes. But in reality, from the etymological point of view, you see that somebody is ahead of you and you become envious. You have this competitive spirit. I should be the first one. I should be the best one. How dare he be better than myself? And what you do when somebody is better than yourself, you just drag him down to your level. You try to degrade himself or whatever. You try to inflict some problem to him. And this is matsarya. The matsarya is the complete opposite, 180 degrees opposite of saumyatvam. Saumyatvam is this attitude. You see somebody and you say, what good can I do to him? And you always can do something good. You can smile to him. And he will become happy by seeing your smile, and you become happy. And it's so simple. It's that simple. Just smile. Just smile now. It feels good, isn't it? And if you see somebody and you kind of wish good to him, you may not be able to do something substantial, but you can do something. Just by smiling, just by saying something good to him. Because we can always say something good to somebody else. And we should be very generous in this regard. Sometimes we're stingy, no. No, but Kṛṣṇa already said that you should say something which is pleasant, and this is the austerity of the mind, or of the speech. And, saumyatvam is this attitude in the mind, which actually makes your speech proper and makes your behavior proper. So everything starts from the austerity of the mind. You cannot really be austere in your speech or in your body unless you are austere in the mind. So, therefore, saumyatvam is the next point. And Prabhupada says, several times he says the same thing. He says that, few times he repeats this, that you should have, the mind should be trained that it can be always thinking of doing good to others, for others. And then he repeats it. One should be straightforward in his dealings, and this is purification of existence. Anyway, it's before that. Few times Prabhupada repeats the same thing. So, that's saumyatvam. And then maunam. Maunam is, of course, a very powerful way to save the energy of the mind. You know, the mind, the weight of the mind is only 5% or 4% of the weight of the body, depending of how healthy you are. If you are very healthy, then it's only 4%. If you are a little skinny, then it may be 5% of the weight of your body. But this little thing, the brain, I'm talking about the brain, not the mind. Mind, of course, doesn't have any weight. But the brain, this little organ, only 5 or 4% of the weight of our body, takes normally, in a normal condition, even when you sleep, it takes 20-25% of all the energy which you have. It gets all the energy when you eat, you know, at least, and this is in a normal condition when you're kind of relaxing. If you're working, if you're really concentrating your mind, if you do some computer programming or whatever, if you're really, you know, using the energy of your mind, then the brain, all the dealings of the brain take up to 50% of the energy. And when you sleep, it's only 20%. And it's never completely, you know, when you meditate, and it can go up to, not up to, but down to maybe 10%. So what is mauna? Mauna is the way to save the energy in the mind. Because when you always agitate your mind in different thoughts, in different ways, in different, you know, verbal sort of things, or when you speak nonsense, you spend your energy. You spend very valuable energy of your body and of your soul ultimately, you know, in all these pursuits. Therefore, those people who know the science, who know how to concentrate the mind, who know how, you know, how the powerful mind can give you great achievements, they're called munis. And what is mauna? Mauna is something which munis do, which wise people do. They're not wasting time in useless talks. They're trying to really save the energy for something good, because you need the energy of the mind. You know, the mind, the human mind, is such a valuable mechanism which is given to us by God. And to, you know, not to waste it in useless talks is a very significant and important way to you know, accumulate the energy for something which is good. And ātma-vinigrahaḥ means, you know, self-control. You really have to controlling yourself, because it's important. And bhāva-saṁśuddhir, you should purify your existence. And this is all tapaḥ maunasam. And this is the tapasya of the mind. This is the ways to make your mind powerful and concentrated and peaceful. You know, if you do this, bhāva-saṁśuddhir means that you have to, as Prabhupada explains here, as I already read, control of the mind means detaching the mind from sense enjoyment. That's ātma-vinigrahaḥ. And one should be straightforward in his dealings and thereby purify his existence. If we really understand that this bhāva-saṁśuddhir, that this purity of my existence is something which is very, very valuable. You know, purity is an amazing thing. Purity you can lose very, very easily. You know, like, you know, this clothes or whatever, it's very easily gets stained, you know. There is no problem. But then to get rid of this stain, you really have to work hard. So easily it gets stained. You put some, some whatever, so many dirty things are there. Especially if it's some oil, you put some oil. And then it's so easy, oil is there. But how hard you have to work to get rid of this oil. And you will have, after so many attempts and many days, you will still have a spot, oily spot in the clothes. So the same thing with the mind. It's so easy to make our mind dirty. Easy, you get something on the internet and the mind, goes into it. And it stays there. It's easily comes in and it's very difficult to get it out. It stays there for a long time and it actually contaminates your mind. So therefore, Kṛṣṇa says here, try to be very careful in this regard. Bhāva-saṁśuddhir. Bhava means our existence. And Kṛṣṇa very, aptly and appropriately says, Yam vapismaram bhavam tyajatante kalevaram tam vaiti konteya sadatat bhava bhavitaha. If you have purified bhava, then yam vapismaram bhavam. Whatever bhava you remember at the moment of death, you will achieve this state of consciousness in the next life. But it's not whimsical. It's not sometimes people think, okay, this is a great secret, now I know it. At the moment of death, I should think about Kṛṣṇa. Forget it. You will not be able to think about Kṛṣṇa at the moment of death if you didn't think about him during the lifetime. Sadatat bhava bhavitaha. Whatever bhava you're training your mind for, this only bhava you will achieve at the end of your life, at the death. And therefore, Kṛṣṇa says here very appropriately that, the mind should be busy with the thoughts of how to purify my existence, how to achieve this very beneficial state of existence. Because what is bhava? Bhava is the state of existence. Sometimes we translate it as emotion, sometimes we translate it as ecstatic emotion, but really bhava is from the bhu dhatu, and bhu dhatu means the existence. So this is the state. And bhāva-saṁśuddhir, you should be in a pure state of your consciousness. And you can only do it if you really do it, diligently all the time. Don't think that now I will get dirty and then, when I'm 50 years old, I will try to get rid of it. It doesn't work like this. No. Try to do this now. And it's so simple and it's so pleasant, actually. It's actually very pleasant. If you do this, you will appreciate it. It's good. Whereas if you contaminate your existence, it doesn't bring any good to you and to anyone else. So bhāva-saṁśuddhir is a very important point of the whole thing. And Prabhupada beautifully says that, the best way is to purify the existence is to help others, is to serve others. You do something for others. And you're pleased, and he is pleased, and everyone is pleased, and Kṛṣṇa is pleased, and, everyone is pleased. And you have this pleasant state of existence, pleasant state of mind as a result of it. This is a certain vritti, certain function of the mind. If you do it properly, then everything is fine. So anyway, I'm talking too much. It's already too long. So maybe we should stop at this moment of time and, meditate on this verse, how to make our mind strong and concentrated, and amazing things will come as a result. Really amazing things. Okay. That's it. Maybe there are some questions. Yes. Yes, Guru said.
He said, actually, here he said that you should satisfy the mind. Actually, with the pressure thinking, think actually that art is the mean for the emotional thinking, like satisfaction, contentment, all those things. But mind is for the rational thinking, and thinking, feeling, and feelings are for the mind. How to understand this?
No. The rational thinking is just cherry on the cake. Rational thinking only occupies very little percentage of your mind. In reality, all the so-called rational thinking is rationalizing our emotions. You feel the emotions which are little hidden, which are not on the surface of the mind, and then on the surface of the mind, which is supposed to be rational, you rationalize your emotions. Like you feel some anger towards somebody else. And what your mind does, your mind always thinks why you should be angry at him. It explains to you, it proves to you that you are right and he is wrong and this and that. But it's nothing but justifying the emotions which are there. It seems to be rational because you're using the, logic and whatever, the capacities of the mind. But deep down, we are irrational beings because we are emotional. People, on the surface, they're rational, but they're driven by emotions, not by the rational thoughts. Rational thoughts occupy very little place in our life, in reality. But nevertheless, rationality and intelligence is very important. But ultimately, we have to be honest with this. We're emotional. We're not rational. Emotions are more powerful than all rationale. You may, sometimes you feel so emotional, so angry, or so whatever, morose, and you preach to yourself, you shouldn't be this, how you can be your devotee, you cannot do this. Does it really work? No, it doesn't work. Maybe a little bit it works. But the predominating feeling is still there. The same feeling is there. You're morose and, you can preach to yourself. Maybe if somebody else preaches to you, it may reach a little deeper. But in reality, we should not overestimate the ability of our rational thinking. Yes, Manamali Govinda.
Probably had asked about the rationality, but we have also understand that intelligence can control the mind.
Supposed to control the mind. In reality, the intelligence just serves the mind by justifying everything which is there in the mind. It's supposed to control the mind if the intelligence is strong and the mind is very well trained. But that's not such a common thing. Yes, if it is properly, if you somehow or other trained yourself properly, yes. But see, that's why Vedic culture is so glorious, because the Vedic culture trains the mind. When the mind is little trained, disciplined, then yes, intelligence has a chance to really control the mind. But before the intelligence will be able to control the mind, the mind should be trained and disciplined, and usually it's disciplined not by one's own intelligence, but by the higher intelligence, by the intelligence of those who are superior to you, of elder people, of the society, everything. You know, if this discipline is there, then the mind is trained, and then your own intelligence will be able also to deal with it. If this discipline is not there, if the mind is not trained, forget it. Your intelligence will not be able to do anything with the mind. It will be just a very obedient servant of the mind. And that's unfortunately the situation for the majority of people, vast majority of people in this day and age. In India it may not be so bad, but it's coming. It's very quickly to the same condition.
Thank you, Maharaj. This point was very helpful. That means association plays a very important role.
Yes, yes. Without association, the mind, it's a wild beast. It's really wild.
I had two questions, Maharaj.
Okay.
So, first one is, as we discussed about the satisfaction, spiritual terms, we apply satisfaction only after putting our 100% effort, because we always are anxious and dissatisfied that I have not served enough. So, otherwise it will interfere with our spiritual endeavors.
See yeah, okay. So what's the question?
So, is it correct that satisfaction should be applied?
Yeah, the satisfaction which we are talking about is the material satisfaction. You should never be satisfied with your spiritual achievements. You should never become complacent. This is what Chanakya Pandit says. Chanakya Pandit says you should be always satisfied with your lunch, with your wife, and with your money. And you should never be satisfied with your japa, with your charity, and something else. I don't remember. Maybe studying the scriptures, yes. So, the satisfaction we are talking about is to put the limit to the material propensities of the mind. Whereas spiritual propensities of the mind, we should always feed and increase. So we should never be satisfied with our japa. Oh, finally, I'm chanting japa so nicely, Hare Krishna. We should never be satisfied with our, with our seva or with whatever we're doing, for others. And we should never be satisfied with our knowledge of the Shastras. We should always study.
Now, the question comes that this spiritual aspiration as an individual, he has a limit of himself. Not everybody is a great devotee. Not everybody, so everybody has its 100%, which Kṛṣṇa has gifted him. So now how he will judge his own level? Otherwise, if he doesn't know, then he will be dissatisfied materially. So is that spiritual pastor's role will be very crucial, because he can judge what is the level of this disciple, and according to his guidance we can be satisfied. Spiritual endeavor.
So your point is that how should we know, are we doing everything which we can, or we are a little lazy, or should we try more, or should we be happy with what we're doing? And the spiritual master tells us, you're doing great. That's the point, yes.
His Grace Anandullah, who once asked His Holiness Bhagwan Swami that 50 plus I am crossing, and now I don't see that I am reaching that pure devotion level, and how I should take, and I feel that I am not reaching anywhere, and I may miss the bus, etc. And Maharaj told, this is a symptom of becoming a Paramahamsa overnight. That why not be satisfied and grateful that we have got this pure devotion. So in this
we should always aspire for something higher that we already have. And sometimes we may become even desperate that we don't, I'm not fulfilled. Like, taking the very crucial example of Madhavendra Puri, who was lamenting at the end of his life, I didn't achieve what I'm supposed to achieve. So this sort of lamentation is a spiritual emotion which is there. But we should be careful to distinguish this spiritual emotion from the material sort of similar emotion which is material. As Sivaradhanath Maharaj put it, Paramahamsa overnight, the lamentation, there is a room for lamentation in the life of a devotee. I'm not fulfilled, I haven't done much. So that's good if it generates an enthusiasm for you to do more and to be more serious. But if it becomes just a self-pity or sort of useless, emotion which makes you paralyzed, what is the use? I was trying to do this devotional service and here I am in the same place, I'm 50 plus, maybe I should go to some other place to do something or whatever. So it's, as Prabhupada says, phalena parichita, you should judge according to the results. If this emotion makes you more serious, that's good. If the same emotion kind of makes you morose and paralyzed in the spiritual path, then it's just trick of your mind, material trick of your mind, which disguised itself under some spiritual pretext. A spiritual thing, if it's spiritual emotion, it gives you energy. It gives you impetus to do something more. So it could be different ways. Yes, Yashmanji.
You were telling in the starting of the lecture that sense pleasure, once you get it, it will stay in mind and it will not others. So I see in a devotee's life, majority of this sense gratification goes through prasada. I have heard in lecture also, I have seen in my own life also. So suppose some rice dal is there, starting go and serving is easy, but some taste is there. Rasagula, how much it tastes. And it is Rasagula, and it is very difficult to go and serve to everybody before everybody. And that seva is going, and bhāva is coming.
What?
Bhāva is coming so much, and seva is going. It is going nice. So how to? And it affects later also. I have seen my daily life also 2-3 times when I have taken prasadam like that. After some time I will feel that so much taking mentality is coming.
Yeah. Yeah, your observation is right. Even though prasadam is a bona fide way to gratify our senses, nevertheless, sense gratification is sense gratification. Therefore, Ekadashi is there and so on and so forth. But see, the satisfaction is coming to us when we gratify the senses, and the satisfaction is coming to us, different kind of satisfaction, but it's coming to us when we do some seva, when we see that somebody else is happy with us. And it's two different tastes. One is very gross and very pronounced. It's very obvious. Another one is a little more subtle. And the tendency of the mind is, of course, go for the gross. you get something tangible. But what I want to say, very important point, little subtle. You know, and the mind, when it gets some satisfaction, you know, if it is concentrated on the satisfaction, it gives, it stays. You know, what stays in the mind, the experience which is upon which you are concentrated. If you take rasagula and your mind will be somewhere in a pariksha, in your exams which you are supposed to do, you will not even notice this rasagula. So you will just, you know, your mind is somewhere else. But if your whole mind is in this rasagula, then of course rasagula will go in the mind and it will stay there in the mind. It will be, you know, you will have a special place in your brain which is called rasagula experience. Heavenly rasagula experience. But what I want to say is that when you serve others, you say that, you know, seva-vritti is gone and bhoga-vritti replaced seva-vritti. Only because the samskara from the seva-vritti is not strong enough to counteract the samskara from this rasagula-vritti, which is there. So if you do something for others, then try also to put your mind in what you're doing and, you know, register the experience which you get. You get pleasure. But the problem is that it's more subtle pleasure, and therefore mind tends to kind of overlook it or neglect it a little bit. But if you make this satisfaction of, like mother, when mother is feeding you rasagula, she's, you know, sitting you down and she made lovingly rasagula. And when she is feeding you rasagula, her mind is completely into this satisfaction of feeding you. She doesn't think about rasagula. She doesn't think, you know, when he will finish eating these rasagulas, I want to eat themselves myself. You know, she doesn't think like this. Her whole heart and her mind is in this pleasure of giving rasagula to you. Why? Because she has this particular samskara, or this attitude, or this bhava. So the point is that if we train our mind, not train our mind, but just, you know, kind of being attentive how happy I become when somebody else becomes happy because of me. When somebody else is eating rasagula and I'm giving this rasagula and I'm a very generous man and I'm asking, do you want more rasagulas? You know, and more. And if you concentrate on this feeling, then the samskara of it will become very strong. And next time, when you start giving rasagula, this samskara will be very joyful. And the other samskara will say, okay, I will wait, no problem. So, that, again, the point is that if we want seva-vritti to overcome bhoga-vritti, then we should pay attention to the experience, to anubhav of seva-vritti. Yes.
You told that by speaking the topic which is not related, a lot of our energy will be spent in that.
Wasted. Yeah.
So to make friends with other devotees, like to be happy always. So I try to say some jokes or something. So in that lot of energy goes, right? So what do you do?
No, it's okay. Not a big deal. You know, if everyone in the session will become a muni, it will become a very boring place to stay.
I just said Purport also same thing, like it's okay. Sometimes
So it's bona fide.
If someone has a habit of speaking to himself like understanding, he will get to the extent of like they are doing fight with someone, making their fist, showing slap, even they go to the extent to abuse someone. When the person sitting next to him, he can hear it. So in such situation, what we should do and how we tackle with these people? We have no other way.
You know, when people are speaking with themselves in Russian, they say it's always pleasant to speak with an intelligent person. So you're speaking with somebody who you consider to be very intelligent, that's yourself. So, you know, this dialogue, internal dialogue, it goes on in everyone's mind. It's just some people little exaggerate it, and it becomes, you know, especially if then they're a little lonely, then, you know, they only have a dog to speak with or some, you know, cactus growing, you know, they may sometimes say, but what to do? Your question is what to do in this case when you're too habituated to speak for yourself.
People eventually take the form of the speech and then finally it goes for action. So that is the dangerous, most dangerous.
What? More than?
When someone is having a habit, so after that it will take the form of the speech words directly going to and just going and addressing the person with whom he has some conflict, and eventually it goes to the corporal officer.
So just try to, you know, it's this internal dialogue is going on. Just try to have the internal dialogue about Kṛṣṇa. And then it will not be harmful to anyone. It will be beneficial. Just speak with yourself about Kṛṣṇa. What's the big deal? Preach to yourself. It's a question of training. Again, we are programmable. We could be programmed, and we should use this ability or this, feature of our mind for the benefit, for our benefit. And Kṛṣṇa consciousness is nothing but programming our mind properly, which will be beneficial for everyone.
And finally, one thing, while chanting, what thought we should have? Like I heard Purport says, just chant in here. And Guru Maharaj says that you keep the foot of the deity in front of you and then chant. So, but it actually doesn't work. Like, I'm just hearing 43 how it goes after that again. Same thing, internal dialogue. So, what?
See, it really depends. I don't think there is a universal recommendation which can be equally applicable to everyone. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he explained, or he writes the whole book Bhajan Rahasya, and Bhajan Rahasya is nothing but a stream of verses appropriate to the stages of spiritual development, which are surfacing in the mind of a practicing devotee while he's chanting. You know, like it is explained here that we should, what is the way to train the mind? The way to train the mind is to read the scriptures. Because when we read the scriptures, we give the material to the mind to think about. And ultimately, there is even more powerful and more subtle way to train the mind is to learn by heart, Sanskrit shlokas describing different aspects of devotional service or different points of philosophy and this and that. So this is how we're training the mind. We're training the mind by the higher intelligence which is accumulated in the scriptures. By training the mind, by reading Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada's books, training the mind, Prabhupada says, Mahābhārata, all these nice stories, Śrīmad Bhagavatam, nice stories. So, and it's a fact, for how long the mind can concentrate just on even on a picture of a deity, so so for that, the scriptures are there. You meditate on a verse and you chant with the same feeling as Bhaktivinoda Thakur suggests. Sometimes verses describe different emotional conditions, and if you know very well this verse, what is it all about, then you will get the proper emotions which will carry you through the chanting, which will help you to concentrate on the chanting. Or you concentrate on a certain point of which you heard, and bring your mind back to the chanting, how important it is. So this way. So we should put the content within our mind, the proper content. And this proper content is the scriptures which is there. Otherwise you cannot just empty the mind. There is no empty space in the universe. Any empty space will be filled with so many other things.
Maharaj, you give the example, thinking of negativity, like snake bite, and somebody is like cancer. If somebody really got the cancer, but they are thinking it will be okay, so it will help by thinking positively.
Yeah, it will help. But there is some limitations, definitely, because there is karma, the forces of karma, this and that. But the mind is really powerful. The point is that, the mind is created in a certain way. It's very easy for the mind to be concentrated on the negative things, and the positive things, it's very difficult to concentrate on positive things with the same level of intensity. Usually we tend to concentrate our mind in the negative things. And therefore when people are afraid of cancer, and they try to counteract this fear of cancer with some positive thinking, usually it's not equally significant or important. And there's another thing, is that there is conscious mind and there is subconscious mind. And the conscious mind is something 6%, and 94% or whatever is subconscious mind. It's like the tip of the iceberg. The most part of the iceberg is somewhere down there. So when you try to program yourself, and between these two parts of the mind, the conscious mind and subconscious mind, there is an intelligence. Intelligence is on this, fine border between the two things. And this intelligence, what it does, it doesn't really allow us, our rational think, to influence the subconscious mind. So if you really want to have a tangible effect, there's no doubt about it that the positive thinking will have an effect. But if you want to have tangible effect, then you need to use special techniques to kind of to put this positive programming deeper. Because usually people they really don't do the good job in this positive thinking, and therefore it's less powerful. Whereas just imagine that you are destined to die, and you know that the cobra will bite, and then you feel this prick of the needle, and then the mind, the chain reaction in the mind immediately, the whole drama immediately is enacted with full concentration. It's amazing mechanism. So it's a question of concentrating on it or getting it deeper, being absorbed in this sort of thoughts. Not just little, casual, wishful, positive thinking. Oh yeah, everything is it's not going to work. Okay, I guess we should. Oh, okay, so I'm going.
You also not wanted to know about yourself more.
I am what I am. I'm here. So what do you want to know about me? I already told you for 1.5 hours who I am.
About your initial days and how you came to Kṛṣṇa business.
That's a separate program. That's
And regarding this topic, yes, you can do a separate one-hour class on that. We'll schedule that with congregation also. And in today's topic, like you said about bhāva-saṁśuddhir, we should purify existence. But now in the current age, where the distractions are too much, as I said about the gadgets and internet and all those things. And the surroundings are also very passionate. The kind of atmosphere which was there in our time, there is no internet,
very polluted.
there is
Yeah.
no TV, there is no mobile phones also at the time.
Yeah.
So it was much easier to practice and stay very satisfied and happy.
Yes.
Because we are not exposed to the other world. We are just within our own world and we are just happy. But
Yeah.
now, so much of information, so much of bombardment, so much of messages, so much of activity, passion. So how to maintain this purity of the heart, all this?
Impossible. but if you try a little bit, it's just putting some certain hygiene. We should be. What is purity? Purity means you have to be hygienic. When you put all this, how you call the sanitizer in your hands. So there should be some hygiene for the mind, also some sanitizer for the mind. Basically, you should limit these things, like all these gadgets. You really, if you want to avoid them, you can avoid them. But sometimes it's impractical. All these mobile phones. 20 years back or whatever time was there, we lived without mobile phones and everyone was happy. But now, it's just impossible to live without mobile phone. You wake up and the first thing you get, it's the I'm sure when sannyasis comes here, the first thing they ask, how's the internet connection? They don't ask for water, they don't ask for food, they ask for internet connection. It's internet is the most basic necessity of life nowadays. There is this, ahara, nidra, bhaya, maithuna, and internet. This is the fifth pillar of life. So you cannot really avoid this thing. So just try to limit it by some reasonable things. You just don't do it before you chanted your japa. This is the greatest austerity which you can imagine. Mahadridha vrata. I'm not looking in my smartphone before I chant 16 rounds of my japa. Or, switch it off after some time. And, try to listen some nice lectures and bhajans. And actually, if you are satisfied internally, then the need for this is less. And you can be happy without this. Believe it or not. Okay, I think we should stop. Thank you very much. Śrīla Prabhupāda ki jai, Gaura Premanandi.